Well, it is time for what I guess you could consider the penultimate stream to Witch on the Holy Night. It's time. Okay, on a small note though, I think I might have started this a bit too late because I'm pretty sure this chapter is like 3 hours and it's already 10 p.m. So yeah, considering the pace that I go, which like I take even longer than like the average time. Yeah, this might be bad. Witch on the Holy Night, Part 2. Oh shit. We still haven't figured out who the witch is, but again, it has to be Toko. That is my guess. This is a bit too bright for my eyes. The golden weir Now where we are not off to a good start. The golden wolf's ears stood pointed, twitching in response to the sounds around it. Its meal finished, it curled up into a ball in anticipation of nap time and yawned, half from boredom. The old abandoned classroom had fulfilled its purpose many moons ago. For a month, the wolf had spent its time resting on top a heap of disheveled dust. Who? How do you pronounce that? His name was Lug? Lou? Is that silent? GH? His name was Lou Beowulf. He was a purebred werewolf, named after the sun at his birthplace and a hero of legend upon leaving there. It goes without saying he was not from this country. He came from a land deep within the European wilderness, surrounded by mountains and forests. So he's not from Japan, but he knows how to speak Japanese. Interesting. His homeland was a realm no human had ever set foot in. In their isolated world forgotten by time, a diminishing race of werewolves lived in peace. But we're gonna get a bunch of lore on Beowulf this chapter, I'm assuming. Keep with. This was where Beowulf first appeared. In a cave on the outskirts of their village, the werewolves found a child bearing the same golden coat as their ancestors. So he just spawned out of nowhere or something? Or maybe when they say found, they might have just like... It means they gave birth to him, Beo. The child was sleeping soundly, as if in its natural habitat. The village welcomed their new member with open arms. 2,000 years of advancing civilization had been cruel to them. As the forests were destroyed, valleys unearthed, and waters polluted, the werewolf birth rate dwindled. They were now facing one birth a decade. The child's golden coat deviating from the typical gray or white and shared only by their ancestors who were treated as gods, felt like a sign their prayers had been answered. A bloodline in atrophy. The werewolves were forced to embrace change. This radiant child at least temporarily made them forget about their troubles. Alas, as time passed, their hopes turned to disappointment. The golden wolf was not their salvation. For some reason... Okay, how do you pronounce this name? Lou? Oh, it is just Lou. Okay, it is just silent. For some reason, Lou, that ray of golden sun, remained a child. Why did he remain a child? Decades passed, and still he did not grow. Forever young, immortal, cursed. Cursed by what exactly? He searched the village for his birth mother, but to no avail. He searched the village for someone who understood his plight, but to no avail. Over hundreds of years, he came to realize something. He was different, very different. Neither male nor female. Neither strong nor weak. Ignorant of life and death, joy and fear. That thing's a spirit, born of nature. Might look like us werewolves, but don't let that fool you. That's what, okay, so this is what I thought. Like, so there are like normal werewolves in the Nasu-verse, but yeah, he's not a werewolf. He's not. I don't know why they're calling him a werewolf. He's a phantasmal beast, right? So why are they calling him a werewolf? I don't get it. He looks like a wolf, but he's actually just a phantasmal beast. But the child himself needed not conjecture to know his true nature. He was perfect, and therefore he was alone. To the golden wolf, the world was too small. That was why. Indeed, that was the very reason. So is it like he isolated himself, or he was perfect and therefore he was alone? He isolated himself, or society isolated him and he wanted affection, which is why he was willing to partner with Toko. That's my only guess. Why else would this phantasmal beast partner with Toko if it's not just loneliness? I don't think her hair is willingly like valuable enough. He wanted to know what life was. He wanted to know loss. If he was all-powerful, he wanted to know the mystery behind his all-powerfulness. Yeah, I want to know that too. Why did he not age? Why did he just spawn out of nowhere so broken? Because as it was, his existence was meaningless. The golden wolf was at loss, as were the werewolves around him. They revered him, but at the same time wanted nothing to do with him. Lu moved back to the cave he was discovered in, and resigned himself to a life of seclusion. So he chose that life by choice?
太陽のルー？ルーガルじゃなくて？そりゃ面白い。偶然にしちゃできすぎだ。
But how did Toko know she was in this cave? I guess there could have been rumors that the Bayo lived in there, I guess. And on one day, a quirky mage visited the village. From his place on top of the rubble, Bayo peered into the hallway. He thought his fussy master was busy dealing with Misaki City's ley lines, but she was engrossed in making traps. 1 month passed since they made the dilapidated building their makeshift workshop. Creating a new trap for intruders became a daily pursuit of Toko's. Isn't that crazy? This whole story only takes place over a month. That's crazy. Wait, when you think about it, I've only been playing I've only been like reading this for a month. So like, isn't it perfect? My god. This is what it means to pace yourself. Having been like this since birth, knowing neither infancy nor dotage. What the fuck is dotage? Dotage. The state of mental decline or feebleness associated with old age. Senility. He thought differently than others. For he was perfect from the day he was born, never declining, never improving. As such, he had no comprehension of weakness. Childlike, fickle, and without morals, he had no concept of good and bad as a human or a wolf. A beautiful creature disconnected from the world around him, he was on top of all other creatures. With one exception, his master, Toko Aozaki. She showed him a sparkling, delicious world, and above all, he found her scent refreshing. To him, the world was divided into what was cool and what was not. Your preference and leisure pursuits were of no consequence to him, and he never took gender into account. The only thing that mattered to him was whether a person's life was logical and therefore cool. Toko Aozaki had her faults, but she smelled good.
Beo, 昼食は済ませたか?
Beo's master entered the classroom, presumably done with her traps for the day.
夜が本番だ。それまであまりハメを外すなよ。
Sometimes, like now, she would nag him, but on the whole, his master pleased him. In reality, the contract binding her to him was not particularly powerful. If he wanted to, he could tear her to pieces at any time. No human could restrain him. Is that foreshadowing? What if at the end of this, Beo decides to eat her? That'd be crazy. However, he had no intention of killing Toko in exchange for his freedom. And there is a reason for this. In order to move about freely in human society, he needed someone like her. As long as she did not offend him, he had no reason to rock the boat. However,
やっと本番か。待たせすぎだよ、トウコさん。
the promise she had made him in his cave and the reality of their situation had begun to come apart at the seams. What is the promise?
来い。最高の神秘と戦わせてやる。
He just wanted a good fight. And it turns out Alice's ploys were not that strong. So we get Gilgamesh here. He would Malkin. He was compliant up to now, but his patience was wearing thin. The fight with the newest magician last night was an enormous letdown.
そういうな。私も昨日は拍子抜けだったんだから。いいけどね。実はあの子、使わないんじゃなくて、使えないだけじゃないの?
Use what exactly? His master's expression turned serious. Not in agreement at the wolf's question, though. For she had already asked herself the same and many other similar questions.
いや、使うぐらいなら死んだ方がマシなのかもな。
She has something up her sleeve. I don't remember her mentioning anything like this, though. She might have.
そんなバカなことがあるの？使わないと死んじゃう状態だったんだよ。だから、そんなバカな考えが成立するぐらい。
That it must be too terrifying to use, Toko finished in her head. She stopped short of voicing it and chuckled at her emotional outburst.
どれほどのものか想像がつかないのは確かだ。だがまあ、根本は変わらないさ。魔法がどのような奇跡神秘の類であれ、魔術師である以上。
With those words, Beo's master walked out of the room, emphasizing that his role in all of this was to face Aoko only at that very moment.
魔法ね。
The boar looked and his eyes shifted. He recalled the taste of that girl, his long tongue sliding over his chainsaw-like fangs. Make no mistake, he would finish his meal. He was the oldest werewolf, the golden god of the forest. For as long as he could remember, no, from the moment he appeared, he had been the most powerful creature of all. All man-made mystics were trash before him. Magecraft was laughable, and even mystics, artificial miracles, were futile. Their very existence was an insult to him.
もちろんそういう契約だし、ちゃんと平らげはするけれど。
That was the extent of their pact. Once he had dealt with this so-called true magic, he was free. But she didn't use true magic, right? His eyes burned with the wolf inside him. His fanged maw twisting into a sadistic, beastly grin. What is true magic? Something you can't even comprehend. Holy shit. The title card. It was just past 7 p.m. Misaki High School's old building stood silently. While light from the city reached the area, the forest and mountains kept that area hushed. Nothing unusual. During winter vacation, the old building, now still covered in yesterday's snow, was rarely used. Without signs of life, such unused structures were mere monuments of what once was, nothing more. The old school building would remain that way until the start of the new semester. Behind it, the vast forest grew darker by the minute. If the building had died in just under 2 weeks of vacation, what had become of the forest over the years? The wall of overgrown trees filtered out the noise of the city and most of the moonlight. An otherworldly realm had taken root, not even 2 miles away from town. Piercing the cold night air, footsteps crunched through the powdery snow.
この辺りに仕掛けはなさそうね。
Why is she in her school outfit? They're on break. Why does she need to be in that? While it's snowing.
それでどうするの？このまま旧校舎に忍び込む？まさか。私らがやってきたことなんてとっくにバレてるわ。隠れても意味はないし、何より敵のアジトに入ってどうするのよ。盗みが目的じゃないでしょ、今回は。後ろから切りつけるのは強盗というのじゃなくて。
So what is Alice gonna do in this fight? Like, 2 of her strongest ploys got destroyed. She got mogged last time. Like, isn't she just like useless here?
それができれば苦労はないんだけどね。まあ、忍者の真似事は私というかアリスの芸風じゃないでしょ。そもそもやる気満々なのはこっちもあっちも同じってこと。
The sound of their footsteps stopped in unison. The old forgotten Misaki High School building stood before them. What used to be a schoolyard was now a barren snowscape. Reclaimed by the forest, the building looked like a shell of its own former self. The surrounding trees resembled standing mourners at a funeral.
せっかちなお嬢さん方だ。タイムリミットまであと4時間はあるというのに。
Alone in the middle of the white altar was the lone, scarred red mage. As she came out from the forest, Aoko lowered herself slightly, scowling at her distant target. Next to her, Alice stood motionless. The bare branches of the trees cast long, thorny shadows. Aoko was reminded of Sleeping Beauty, except this mage wasn't nearly as pleasant as the princess in that. Not to mention she wasn't sleeping, and there is no prince. Regardless, this princess came out of her schoolhouse castle to greet her challengers.
その体で無理をして。あなたのそういうところ、姉としてどうかと思うわ。
She wouldn't worry. She tried to kill her. Toko grinned faintly. Aoko fought back the urge to respond. Meanwhile, Alice stood in silence, uninterested in sibling rivalry. Toko stood about 100 feet away. They can hear each other from 100 feet away talking like that, can they? With their senses sharpened through magecraft and the silence of the forest. Why? I should have read that before. Why? Okay. Yeah, I should have read that sentence before I said that. The golden wolf was nowhere to be seen. Toko faced the two girls alone. Alice's black overcoat and winter hat were typical items of clothing for mage battle. A few paces in front of her was Aoko, whose combat garb was comparatively out of place, a Misaki High School uniform. She had asked Alice to bring a change of clothes for her, but there must have been some misunderstanding. Well, that explains that too. Though it was a trivial miscommunication, Toko seemed to think it had a special meaning.
ところで、始める前に一ついいかな。気になって仕方がないし、この先機会もないだろうから聞くんだけど、あなたの戦闘服ってそれなの？
Don't tell me it's gonna have some sort of significance in this fight. Toko spoke clearly, and despite the distance, was able to communicate her deep-seated scorn without trouble. Aoko would rather attack than engage in small talk, but she decided to take the bait.
そんなわけないでしょ。今までこういう機会が多かっただけよ。数えるなら今日を含めて4回しかないわ。私はまだ現役だからそれも悪くはないかもしれないけど、いつか流行るでしょ、こういうのも。
Aoko was sure to emphasize her words. For a split second, Toko's eyes narrowed.
呆れたな。相変わらずのローセンスだ。
I think they both look great.
それはどうも。人形を実の妹に見立てる異常者にそう言われるなら、一周回って安心よ。
With that, the two fell silent and glared at each other. Their bloodlust cut through the thick, cold air like a knife. While the two of them sized each other up, Alice surveyed the area around Toko. There is no indication that anyone or anything was lying in wait near her. Perhaps she should see if the werewolf was still in the old school building. Maybe Toko didn't feel like Aoko and Alice were much of a threat in their injured state. Or was she really not expecting a counterattack so early, so the werewolf wasn't ready? After some contemplation, Alice surmised it was the former. What was the former? She really was going to fight alone. Her arsenal comprised her mystic eyes and rune magecraft. That was more than enough to deal with Aoko and Alice in their current state. Alice, all I need is this one shot. Aoko signaled to Alice behind her with the movement of her finger. Alice had no objections. The original plan was for her to keep the werewolf busy. With the mirror as a backup, Aoko was hoping to catch Toko off guard. They had a few other cards up their sleeves, but the fact remained that as mages their attacks wouldn't affect the werewolf. So they decided to ignore it and focus on taking out Toko. Not the best strategy, but it was all the two of them could come up with. I think these two girls might be idiots. But they had been thrown a curveball. Toko had the upper hand, so she was reluctant to use the beast. Aoko wasn't about to let this opportunity go to waste. By distracting her with her sibling banter, she would settle things before the werewolf even showed up.
じゃあ、今度はこっちの番ね。どう？結界の張り直しは進んでる？
まさか、昨日の今日よ。まだ手をつけてもいない。だいたい、私の目的は霊脈の奥にあるもので、結界そのものじゃない。張り直しは予定にないさ。まあ、土地を暴くなんて面倒な真似をするより、お前を暴いた方が早いのかもしれないが。
やっぱりそれが目的だったのね。ならなおのこと、あんたを魔法使いにするわけにはいかないわ。
Alko's blue eyes burned brightly with a fiery fighting spirit. Even though her sister was ready to pounce, Toko remained motionless but for her mouth, which twisted into a smirk.
魔法使いか。確かにまだ執着はあるね。私には移植されなかった魔術刻印と青崎の伝える魔法の正体。だがもういいよ。惜しくはあるが、到達すればどちらも自分で用意できる。それとも今ここで私のために魔法の正体を見せてくれるのかい、青子。
Toko's words came out flatly, but her eyes mocked her sister. It was true, however, that if Alko wanted to defeat Toko, her best bet would be to use this mysterious true magic. The only problem was that she couldn't. If she could, she would have used it to avoid being mauled last night. Huh. Alko Aozaki couldn't use true magic. Toko believed she needed to fulfill some kind of condition. The protection their grandfather placed on the formulae was to prohibit miracles from being easily realized. However, that wasn't because he was concerned about the human world. It was no exaggeration to say he'd feel nothing if magic leveled the entire city. The truth was, true magic never had any conditions. It doesn't have any conditions. So the protection is to help her cope with the trauma instead of accepting it? These 5 privileges, the only powers of their kind, were bound by cognitive seals. That's why Toko looked down on her naive little sister. So weak, a body incapable of handling magic could be cut down with a mere sword. Alko knew that better than anyone else, which is why she couldn't forgive her sister's ridicule. Wait, what? Held back by trauma. What trauma, though? The only trauma I could think of is that scene at the beginning of the game where she found that cat in the car. But like, there's no way it's that. Why can she not use true magic? What is the trauma that's... Just try using true magic, huh? A pathetic taunt. If that was how she wanted to play, then so be it. With a burst of pure rage, Alko made her move. Her colorless shoes sped across the untainted snowfield, like a stone skipping across the water. As Alko charged forward, she disappeared. Only her footprints advanced, like bullet holes in the snow. Toko held her ground. Concealment was an elementary magecraft. More than likely, the power came from one of Alice's trinkets. It was a simple yet effective countermeasure to Mystic Eyes. Toko's Mystic Eyes used the lock property to bind the appointment. If it did not have the logo's property to discern truth through an illusion. Once a magecraft's working revealed its weakness, it was exposed. In a mere 4 seconds, her opponent had closed 10 yards and was still speeding up. It appeared that she had given up on the mage battle and was going to move in for melee. The other girl, Alice Kuonji, didn't take a single step.
被弾覚悟の特攻。アリスから5符でももらっているのでしょうけど、反省なさい、青子。切り札というものはあくまで自己の力によるものを言うのよ。
Sneering, Toko raised her left arm, holding it out in front of her threateningly. 10 more yards. Unfortunately, her footprints gave away her position.
そう。
Toko began engraving a rune into the air. But before she could finish, Aoko's footprint stopped. She was still too far away for close combat, with a strange place to end her attack. No, wait. Could she really stop so suddenly at that speed?
飛んだか。
Oh shit. Toko made a snap decision. She quickly raised her outstretched arms towards the sky as if saluting the moon.
添える。
So willow. She's using the clone that Alice used in 2 chapters ago in their fight. The rune carved into the body above her, bathing it in a pillar of flames. No internal resistance spell could help. Rather than simply burning their target, the runes wrapped them in a wreath of flame. The assailant screamed, falling onto the snow-covered ground. In agony, she extended a burning hand out from the hellish fire as if begging for mercy. It was the stuff of nightmares. The snow melted as the fire burned the attacker alive. No. The movement was far too theatrical to be Aoko. Toko had already turned her gaze to Alice. She hadn't been watching the burning corpse at all. Toko knew it wasn't Aoko from the moment the body fell to the ground.
アインスターの使い魔は何匹いる。
Irritated, Toko glared at Alice. While Aoko had vanished into thin air, she hadn't moved at all. Blue energy traced a circle around where she stood. It was Force to Forth, a 4-bar Grand Magecraft mobilizing her magic crest. Toko only had single-action runes. No, she hadn't mastered anything above 2 bars to begin with. This torrent of energy was too much to handle. 4-bar.
言わず。
The rune formed in a magic circle. Awaz, the rune of withdrawal, was evoked and Aoko's concealment was undone, allowing Toko to utilize her mystic eyes. Within her open pupil, the infinitely mirrored eyes captured their target in an endless hell. Is it another familiar? But the mage's sight was literally split in two. The space in front of Aoko distorted, obscuring her form like an icy mist. If Toko's eye was like opposing mirrors, then this was like a sticking a one-way mirror at the triangulation point. So because of the mist from the fire, do you think they actually cooked this strat up? Are they actually geniuses? They anticipated that she would use a fire spell on the familiar, which would melt the snow and cause mist, and that would mess up her mystic eyes. Are they that 5-head? With her vision split in two, she couldn't lock onto Aoko.
御水の鏡の効果よ、トウコさん。
Oh, it's the mirror. You are overthinking this. Oh, okay. Well, okay. When it says like an icy mist, like, wait. Oh. Yeah, there's no way they would be that smart.
青子は鏡の Y 字路の奥にいる。一本道から見ているあなたに中心は見渡せない。
Alco's deep in the fork in the road. The road the mirror creates. What road? Alice explained without concern. Due to the herb Toko made Alice swallow, she was still unable to use her own magecraft. However, she could use ploys already in motion without using magical energy, such as the mansion's mirror and the aimless little bluebird. Oh, the mirror from the mansion. What does that do again? Finally, the magic bullet was loaded.
Set. Root. Direct current.
Raising her right arm to reveal her luminescent crest, Alco took aim at her target 100 feet ahead. Magical energy coursed through her gun barrel arm. From the moment she received Alice's invisibility, Alco had begun chanting her magecraft. It took Toko a few seconds to notice. Toko produced more spins in the awakened magic circus than she had ever done before. Even more than against Flat Snark? That's crazy. She ready not snap, nor draw. Instead, she advanced past her third process, a compression of magical energy. Magic blow. If she fired the blue ether that gathered before her, it would fly with the force of 10 tons. Using her magic crest to multiply the energy and magic gun her target... Oh, and machine gun her target. Magic gun. Using her magic crest to multiply the energy and machine gun her target, it was enough power to demolish even the old building behind her.
Taka!
Alco stared intensely at her sister, ready to fire. Toko had no time to counterattack, or even the speed to evade. The fact she didn't move implied she knew that better than anyone. Acceptance filled her eyes, not fear. Aoko didn't hesitate. She squeezed the trigger on her right hand. The last word came out like a scream. It didn't really sound that much like a scream. Under the impact of the ether, the surrounding snow melted and flew around. Toko was engulfed in dirt. No way she could survive Aoko's magic bullet. It contained every bit of Aoko's magical energy she could muster. I'm gonna assume that like Bayo just came out of nowhere last second and shielded Toko from the attack, considering that magical energy doesn't affect Bayo. Viewing the chaos, Aoko confirmed her victory. Maybe not. And yet, somehow she felt bitter. But then, choosing to deal with the torrent of magical energy she swallowed up later, Toko tooted at Aoko's childishness. Her disappointment was so deep that it bordered on despair.
学ぶにしては遅すぎたが、まあ聞いておけ青子。切り札というものは先に出した方の負けなんだよ。
That wasn't her actual trump card though, right? Was it? Her voice cold and aloof, she was completely unscathed. The mage stood in the snowfield, not a single speck of dirt on her overcoat. Just before the bullet reached Toko, she deflected it with magical energy on the saved level. Oh shit. Aoko could only stare at the scene before her. The negation of her magecraft hadn't shocked her though. Leaf-like objects floated behind her sister. Aoko stared like she was living a nightmare. Countless magic crests poured out from Toko's back. It all happened in an instant. The fuck? Where did this come from? The magic bullet approached like a tsunami. Toko lightly snapped her fingers, causing a stream of letters to rush out from behind her. Text became art. Golden flowers bloomed. There must have been hundreds. All sorts of magecraft from even beyond Western Europe. The kind normally carved into the flesh of a mage. The kind Toko Aozaki shouldn't possess. Wait, what kind? The kind normally carved into the mage. The kind only followers of those schools should know. What schools? Blossoming magic crest, brighter than the moon. Inscribed in the air, they formed a totem pole, a guardian beast to protect Toko.
When
did she get these?
ベオだけに頼ってはいないことがよくわかったろ?
It would also be wrong for her to rely on just Bayo killing them, because like the point is not, like I said, it's not to get revenge to just like by just killing her sister. She wants to prove herself as a superior mage for the Aozakis and like, reclaim that title. So like she actually has to reclaim that by proving that she's the better mage, right? So like, yeah, it doesn't make sense to just use Bayo. Toko's expressions was steely. Victory was in her grasp, and there was no room to rest on her laurels.
姿を隠したのは鏡の応用か。探知や隔離だけでなく、援護まで行えるとはね。三大のプロイには含まれないものの、汎用性の面で言えば、あれも破格のプロイだな。
持ち上げるじゃない。何？騙された負け惜しみ？
いや、ただの自画自賛だよ。
Blissfully unaware. Oh.
何しろ今のバージョンは私とマインスターの合作だ。趣味に興じすぎてあれこれと機能を足してしまったと今更ながら悔いているところさ。
Wait, who is Monster again? Is that Alice's father or something? Oh, no. Wait. She's talking about the mirror. But like again, who's Monster?
その後、青子に見せかけて私に向かってきたのは例のコマドリ。
Oh.
それに気を取られている間の大規模な魔術の発動。私の魔眼はアリスが防ぎ、青子は攻撃だけに専念する。組み立ては悪くはない。よくやったと言っておくよ。
Toko recounted their strategy, sharing her impressions as she went. Aoko could not take her eyes off Toko's blooming magic crest. Only Alice was paying close attention to Toko's words.
しかし、それもここまでだ。惜しいな、青子。わずか2年であれだけの魔術を使えるのなら、あと数年もすれば一流の射手になっていただろうに。
Toko snapped her fingers again. The floating crest began to glow more brightly.
アリス、あれは何？
She doesn't even know what those are. Aoko whispered to Alice standing next to her as she held her hand. She could not risk turning around. The second she took her eye off of Toko, the fight would be over.
見ての通り魔術刻印よ。信じられないけど。
Alice's voice was filled with shock and discomfort. Aoko shared Alice's sentiment. Magic crests were passed down through a family line and took unique forms. At heart, they were merely personalized inscriptions, and technically no different from grimoires. However, the reality was far from different. Far different. Magecraft had no set form. Without a set shape, the ability to recreate mystics was itself flawed. To craft it into a form required an immeasurable investment of time and devotion. Magic crests were the crystallization of a family's desires and ambitions, and proof of the successor's lineage. Crests had no effect on their own, but they were the ultimate symbol of a family. If no mage was willing to imbue themselves with the crest, or lacked the resolve to merge with it, then the crest's meaning was lost. That was the key difference between a quest. That was the key difference between a crest and a mere spellbook. Crests could not be shared, and imitating them was pointless. It only stood to reason then, that even if the crests manifesting behind Toko belonged to someone else, only the original owner could benefit from them. Don't tell me she's what? Searching for answers, Aoko squinted her eyes as she glared at Toko. She knew that copying a crest had no purpose. Only the inheritor could invoke one. So, she didn't inherit them through lineage, so how'd she get them? She just crafted them all on her own or something? There's only one possible conclusion.
そう。肌に刻まず中空に浮かべてるのはそういうこと。
Are they artificial or something? Aoko spat a curse at her sister. Toko nodded, pleased at her enemy's quick wit.
ああ、この体には合わないのでな。私の背後の空間に固定している。
They didn't suit my body. Wait, why didn't it suit? Crystallization of a family's desires and ambitions, and proof of the successor's lineage. So the desires and ambitions didn't fit her body, or...?
本当はね、お前たちのように肉に刻んだ方がいいんだ。魔術の起動が一動作で済むんだから。
So where did she get these from?
だが実際に使用するのなら、こうするしかない。起動までの手順は一つ増えるが、何？マイナスばかりでもない。所詮は人事なんでね。痛みは全く感じない。
Whose were they then? And it seemed neither physically nor mentally. Aoko knew her sister was inhuman, but she never thought she would go this far.
合うわけないじゃない。他人の魔術刻印を剥がしてるんだから、血筋の称号からして馴染むはずがないわ。
So, is she the better mage or is she not? I don't know. I mean, mages aren't based on their morals, right? So, like, would you consider this impressive or not? Or is this like a taboo in the mage world? Stealing another lineage's crest. I will tell you after you finish this.
で、
What?
奪われた連中は死ぬこともできず、今もどこかに生かされているわけだ。刻印の持ち主が死んだら起動すらできないものね、それ。
The person or persons you stole them from can't die. Oh, do crests disappear if someone dies? If they died, you couldn't activate their crest.
トウコさん、あなた。
非難される覚えはないんだが。
I mean, judging from their reactions, I'm assuming this is a taboo for mages.
私はかかる火の粉を払っただけだよ。向こうから戦いを挑んできたんだから、戦利品ぐらいは用意してもらわないと。まあ、中にはつまらない単語を口にしたバカ者もいるが、それはそれだ。むしろ優しいと思うけどね。私を殺しに来た連中をわざわざ生かしてあげてるんだから。
Who? I'm really interested with this adventure she went on after she left Misaki. Like, how'd she know Bayo was in that village? How'd she get these crests?
その魔術師たちがちゃんと人間の形をしてることを祈るわ。肉。
お前ね、私を何だと思ってるんだ。脳だけ保存とか面倒だから100人ひとまとめにした肉塊とか、そんな手抜きなんぞするものか。きちんとカフェを用意して食事も娯楽も睡眠も自由に提供してるんだぞ。中には一生ここで暮らしたいなんて騒ぎ立てるバカもいるぐらいだ。
Where'd she get all the money for that? Toko's words were hardly believable, but it was clear her crests weren't copies. Alice's scowl deepened. What Toko had described had no discernible benefit in her mind. She had gone. Why had she gone to the trouble of stealing other mages' crests? It would have been more efficient to break down the crests into components and make replicas. For a skilled puppet master like Toko, she could have made a much more powerful puppet with those crests. It would have made a pawn loyal to her every command at that, much more useful than any enslaved mage.
なんでそんなことを。そういう人なのよ、姉貴は。これで行くと決めたらそれしか目に入らない人なの。ある日の話よ。テレビでピザの CM をやっててさ、私たちは唐突にあのデブ食を食べたくなった。でも悲しいかな。一般家庭であるうちにあったのはサラミだけ。うちの実家、山奥にあるの知ってるでしょ。町まで行くのに1時間はかかる。中学1年だった私は我慢できなくて町まで行ったけど、ピザ屋なんか一軒もなくてとぼとぼ帰ったの。
It was the tragedy of living in the countryside. Misaki, which had only recently gone a conveyor belt sushi restaurant, would not see a pizzeria for another 2 years.
なのに骨折り損で家に帰ったら姉貴のやつ「おかえり」とか手を振ってピザ食べてやがったのよ。
Where'd she get that from?
おせんべいを下地にしてみたわとか言って、
Oh.
外見たら鳥3羽と牛1頭丸々消えてて、ああこの女には10日交換とか手間とかお金の問題とかそういうの一切頭にないんだって思い知らされたわ。
What? Alice agreed that was pretty crazy.
そんな無茶なやつだから ガンド打ちで目に見える傷跡を出そうなんて平気で考えるのよね。あんなのゲマトリア一節分の栄唱で同じ効果を出せるのに、あくまで呪術にこだわるから空も飛べない人形になるのよ、バカ兄貴。
The thought of a puppet doppelganger made her blood boil. It was clear to Aoko now that Toko had done it on purpose to annoy her. Toko furrowed her eyebrows at Aoko's verbal assault. She had been stoic up until now, but speaking rudely about her prized puppet was crossing the line.
その人形に追い詰められたのはお前だったね。それとゲマトリアはカバラの秘術だ。私はルーン専門だから、お前のように広く浅く知識を広める気はないよ。
There is so much jargon I am not understanding right now.
まあもっとも、この刻印の所有者の一人からケルトの結界を教わりはしたがね。
Toko looked to the crest over her left shoulder. Its shine was ever radiant, proving that its magecraft was active.
これは城で祖父を封じ込めるのに使っていてね。
Wait. This castle?
半人半用のドルイド層を閉じ込めたとまではいかないが、そうだな。私では郵便ポストぐらいの大きさが限界か。ほら、昔お前が壊した赤いポスト、ちょうどあれぐらいの可愛い鳥小屋だよ。人間一人分をしまうには窮屈だろうが、祖父は肉体というより霊体に近い。見ようによってはそっちの方がふさわしいかもしれないね。
So that's where her grandfather went. Toko stifled a sinister laugh, her explanation chilling. Her cold veneer seemed to slip slightly when it came to her grandfather, her smile betraying the long festering hatred she still clung to.
そういったわけでね、先の青子の魔術を防いだので、この刻印もしばらくは使用不能なんだ。
Wait, so is this blossoming magic crest from her grandfather? Because I thought like the crest is passed down in the family, so like how did the grandfather still have a magic crest? But like it had to be his, because why else would she seal their grandfather in that tiny in that thing, in that device? Do they keep their magic crests even after passing them down?
今のが本当の魔法だったなら、わずか3行の刻印では
True,
打ち消
just
せなかっ
use
ただろ
true
うね。
magic. It's that simple.
青子、お
Why
前は
doesn't she
僅
do
差
it?
で負けたんだ。恥じることはないよ。じゃあそろそろ終わりにしよう。抵抗をするのは自由だが、ベオ相手にそれは辛いぞ。
Uh-oh. Toko snapped her fingers one more time. The golden werewolf was hiding in this old school building. The signal to him echoed eerily through the surrounding woods. Before the echo stopped, Aoko shouted back at Alice.
行って、アリス。
The order sounded like reprimand, but Alice silently obeyed. Without hesitation, she left Aoko behind to handle Toko, and made for the forest. If defeat was inevitable, it would be pointless for both of them to die. If one of them could survive, there could be a round tree. What the round? Nah, I'm dyslexic, I swear. There could be a round 3. That's a bad. That's a really bad one. Holy fuck. That was why Aoko decided to be the sacrificial pawn.
トウコ自身の切り札も分かったし、アリスが本調子になれば勝てない相手じゃないものね。
Wait, so they just had to wait a bit longer for Alice's magic to start working again, but they didn't. That's crazy. Aoko muttered bitterly to herself as Alice's feet crunched through the snow. Instead of cursing her own death, she cursed the fact she would not see Alice defeat Toko. For what else was there to curse except this? Alice disappeared into the forest. Feeling her fellow mage's presence fade, Aoko continued to glare at her sister.
いつまでじらす気？私、待たされるのは好きじゃないんだけど。
Well, yeah, but didn't she mention like 30 minutes ago that the crest like there's still like a 4-hour countdown? Like surely they could have like would Alice's magic come back before the countdown? Speaking of waiting, the werewolf Toko had called was nowhere to be seen. It should not have taken him more than a few seconds to come flying out of the old school building.
そうセクナ。今赤ずきんを追っているところだ。黒帽子の彼女をそう例えるのはやや無理があるがね。
Her tone reeked of irony. Uh-oh. The words traveled aimlessly across the schoolyard like a rambling announcement. Aoko stood frozen and dumbfounded. Everything Toko was saying seemed so far away from reality. Ooh. Aoko was done with being fooled, so she turned around. The moonlight shining off of this fallen snow allowed her to see far into the forest. From the white darkness, a lone boy came into view, walking towards her. Oh my god, Bayo face reveal. He could not have been any taller than Aoko's chest, but he carried Alice over her shoulder with ease. As if she was nothing, he tossed her body upward. She arched through the air for several feet before dropping head first before Aoko's eyes. Her neck would snap on impact. Oh, fuck. Even though she was wiser not to, Aoko reached out and caught her. Alice's light body weighed heavy as she fell into Aoko's arms. The stitches on her wounds tore, dyeing Aoko's arms crimson. Aoko gritted her teeth, fighting the pain that shot through her body and the sensation of the warm blood. Alice did not respond, but Aoko could see she was at least conscious. The werewolf must have ambushed her right after she ran into the woods. Alice bled heavily from where the wolf tore her abdomen open last night, just like he had done to Aoko. Cursing her own carelessness, she gently lay Alice's body down. She set her sights on the blood-haired boy. What the fuck? She set her sights on the blonde-haired boy, her new target.
つまり、あれよね。甘く見ていたふりで、初めから余裕なかったんだ。
Oh. Even in the face of Aoko's rage, he did not stop smirking. He stared back at the girls, eyes gleaming, twinkling with excitement at the brutality to come. The blonde hair and green eyes she saw last night, and his effeminate features now, seemed ethereal, like he has changed into a being from another planet.
Beo, 今日は食っていいぞ.
Toko's voice echoed from afar. The boy's grin broadened. Nobody could have expected what came next. Aoko rushed headfirst at the boy. Faster than the robin decoy, she sped, blood dripping from both arms. Toko watched wide-eyed at the spectacle. Alice could only look on with vacant eyes as she lay helplessly on the ground. The werewolf boy was caught off guard by the prey becoming predator. Aoko crossed a 20-foot gap in a second before planting a foot in the snow. It arrested her momentum and pivoted her body like a top. Even if he instantly understood what was coming, the boy wouldn't be able to dodge in time. Using the momentum from her sprint, she pushed her leg into the ground and sprang up. With deadly timing, her roundhouse kick swung in a wide arc toward the boy's neck, sending an explosion of force to his brainstem. It was an expert display of martial arts, strengthened by magical energy. She'd gotten the hang of close combat while fighting Toko's puppets. The violent kick was powerful enough to shatter a tree trunk. The boy did not move. Aoko's right shin connected firmly and stopped. A shockwave rippled through his neck. It was the same feedback Aoko had felt when she destroyed the puppet. Even if he wasn't defeated, she had to have severely damaged his spine. As she looked at him to confirm her kill, the boy simply stared back at her, not even bothering to twitch an eyebrow. Ooh.
お姉さんの右足は確か噛み切った方だ。それで首を狙ったのはすごいよね。女の人は本能的に自分の体をかばうものだって瞳子さんは言ってたのに。
I mean, wow.
けど残念。せっかくの勇気も無駄でした。
Wait,
僕の
that's
体毛
not the
の
neck.
質は
That's the
こ
side
の
of his
姿で
head.
も変わらない。産毛だけでもお姉さんの蹴りを受け止めることはできる。
Wow. The only one hurt between the two was Aoko. The leg she had lodged in his neck was totally numb, like he had been chopped clean off with a hatchet.
それに少しだけ迷いがあったな。くっつけたばっかりの足だからかばったでしょ。人間が僕の相手をするならそんなこと気にしちゃいけないのに。ああ。
The boy smiled, basking in Aoko's shock and awe. She could not free her leg. No doubt as soon as she regained her footing, he would tear her stomach open.
どっちにしろミンチだから気にしても仕方がないよね。ほら、もったいない。せっかく治ったばかりなのに。
Aoko was not sure, but it felt like he had sunk his finger into the flesh of her right leg. He was right about her leg. She barely had any feeling in it. It had been completely paralyzed after the last attack and was now back in the same horrid state. Except this time, instead of being torn to pieces, it had been crushed to the bone. Her leg might have been numb, but just the look of it was enough to horrify her, the way it was crumpled, all that blood. Any normal person would have died from shock. As if thinking about someone else, Aoko considered how cruel Magic Crest could be.
あれ？まだ目が死んでない。 あんまり苦しめたくないんだけど。頑丈なのも考えものだよ。
The boy thrust his hand out at Aoko's chest. Her consciousness flickered from the sudden pain of a stake. No, a child's fist piercing her torso. Uh-oh. The scenery flew by. She soared through the air, like a rag doll tossed away by a bored child. Just like Alice a moment ago, she tumbled through the air and hit the ground, hard. Her right leg was crushed, her chest caved in. It was as if her heart had been scooped out of her chest. Each gasp of breath left her wanting more. Man, I'm still thinking these two are idiots for thinking this. Like, I get, how, why Aoko did it, she's just that stubborn. But, why did Alice follow along with all this? She knew that she would just get, that this... Wouldn't Alice know this was a completely impossible plan? Was this what it was like to see stars? The terrifying part was the pain. It never let up. Desperately trying to suck in oxygen, she could still feel his fist. Leisurely, the boy strolled across the snow towards Aoko's broken body, his red tongue gliding over his lips. He stared at his prey, who was desperately trying to breathe, his eyes filled with glee. Aoko bit down the temptation to drift away, even though she could find no reason to fight on. The snow had broken her fall slightly, but her death was all but certain. The fist-sized crater in her chest, and her mangled leg made sure that. Even though she knew she was a broken mess, her magic crest frantically worked to resuscitate her heart, but why? Why does Toko look shocked? That's what I'm saying. Like she was witnessing some strange phenomenon that wasn't like her. Wondering what it was, Aoko tried to stay conscious. Feebly trying to raise her head, she looked to where Toko was staring. Is it the goat? The goat himself? Why did she look like that when she was so close to victory? His heart was beating faster than normal. The fragmented and disturbing images kept returning, and he desperately pushed them to the back of his mind. Well, too bad for him, he's about to see them again. They were thoughts that shook his resolve. He did his best to file them away into an unseen corner of his consciousness. Right now, he could only focus on controlling his breathing and his exertion. Just stay calm, he repeated to himself. He had not stopped for a single second since leaving the church, even without giving a thought to what he would do next. So many traffic lights, so many people. It was Christmas. There is no way he would find a taxi. Waiting for one was not an option. It was why he had put his trust in his legs. He dashed through the city streets. He had to find a shorter route than last night. His heart was ready to jump out of his chest, pounding like a hammer against the fire bell. He had no intention of giving up yet, but he could not seem to calm himself down. In his precarious condition, even surrender seemed too great of an effort to spare. Visions of horrible outcomes flashed through his mind. No, calm. He needed to stay calm. That was his only weapon. He was painfully aware that he was powerless. The best thing he could do was to keep his head on straight. While he wrangled with his mind, his pulse seemed to quicken with every step. The forest was faintly lit by the moon. That was more than enough on such a bare mountain. He followed the two sets of footprints. Ahead lay a situation he had nothing to do with, just like at the amusement park. Even if you go, there's nothing you can do for them. The only effect her admonishing words had was to hasten this pace. He pushed the ground with his legs even harder, trying to leave his doubt in the kicked-up snow behind him. Of course, he was powerless. The pain in his chest told him so. At best, he would be useless, and at worst, he would be a liability. He recalled the binding spell placed on him at the church. It did not matter. His body told him he would regret being torn to pieces less than if he did nothing. Not once did his legs fail him as he ran through the woods. It felt as though his heart could at any moment. His weakness screamed at him from within. Just like back at the amusement park. He was beyond reason or circumstances now. Ultimately, I just want to help her. That was all he really desired. His heart pounded with fire. As he ran through the dark, wintry forest, only one thing gnawed at his mind. Vigor just doesn't sound right. No, okay, I don't like Vig. It just doesn't sound right, man. Okay, like, can someone explain why, like, vigor is pronounced vigor, but then, like, I don't know, like, a word like vitality is pronounced vitality instead of vitality. Like, can someone make it make sense? Can someone make it, like, consistent? Like, where does the VI, like, hello, vigor, vitality, like, can someone make it make sense, man? Not concerned for the girls, not anger towards Toko. The red roses bursting forth from her limbs. Vitality does have both pronunciations in English and British. I mean, surely vigor does as well, then. Wait, let me log in again. As he ran through the dark wintry forest, only one thing gnawed at his mind. Not concern for the girls, nor anger towards Toko. The red roses bursting forth from her limbs. Screams of agony, like childbirth. The harsh reality of something beautiful dying. The nightmare was tenacious. Never again. Never ever again did he want to see something like that again, if he could help it. Just ahead was the forest clearing. The moonlight shone on the old school building like a spotlight. Once again, those thoughts crept back. He could not bear seeing something like that again. But he's about to see something like that again. Uh-oh. That was why he ran. But if he had to face it a second time, how could he stay calm? Oh no. With that thought in mind, he arrived at that clearing. Somehow, his frantic breathing, his rising and lowering shoulders stopped. No exhaustion, no inertia, just blankness, like his mind was frozen in time. This was the second time he felt like this. But the nausea and dizziness from the first time, the pathetic whining of the last few weeks, the doubts clouding his mind, they were all gone. Displaced entirely from his mind by an even stronger emotion. Anger? Rage? His heart pounded with the force of a sledgehammer. It was a primal sound, loud enough to bring him to his senses. Oh, he's pissed. Sojiro stepped into the clearing, letting out a deep but steady exhale. Oh, he's so pissed. Although his eyes were locked with the blonde-haired boys, his concentration was focused inward. Be calm. Every fiber of his being worked to control his breathing. The clearing told the story of Aoko and Alice's crushing defeat. Aoko was lying face up in the snow, her right leg bright red and crushed at the thigh. Her eyes were glazed over, but Sojiro could tell she was still bravely fighting. Judging by her spluttering, she had taken a hard blow to her chest or back. Sojiro deducted it was most likely both. Alice's injuries seemed less serious than Aoko's, but she lay motionless on the ground nevertheless. I mean, Aoko also has that, like, protection or something from her mother that, like, regenerates her, so, like, yeah, she's probably chilling, she's fine. She was lying across from Aoko, face down in the snow, arms out in front, as though pushing herself up was too painful. Before the old school building stood the figure of the maid she had seen before. Paying her no mind, Sojiro began to walk forward. Feeling calmer since arriving at the clearing, he advanced towards Aoko. Toko did nothing to stop him. No one noticed, but the faintest look of worry flickered in her eyes. She's worried? Worried about what? What could she possibly worry about by this guy? This harmless guy? Is this where we finally see what's under his neck and then he goes god mode or something? But again, that would actually make no sense. The child werewolf spoke amicably, confident in his victory, and perhaps also eyeing up a new meal. Sojiro ignored him and kept walking towards Aoko. Damn, he just ignored the most powerful being in the Natsuverse? That's crazy. The complete disregard wiped the smile from the boy's face. Still, Sojiro carried on. The beast's feelings were the last thing on his mind. Once he reached Aoko, he looked down at her with a pained expression on his face. Strangely, he was at a loss for words. After a slight hesitation, all he could manage to say was, I'm assuming he's talking about ditching him without saying anything. His awkward remark was half scolding and half affectionate. Despite the pain in her stomach, Aoko was able to throw an insult his way. His voice brightened, as if buying her bravado. The truth was that she barely had any strength. She had the strength to live. Despite that, Sojiro looked like he wanted to respond in his usual way. Something like, "See, Aozaki, you're too tough to die, even when someone kills you." People die when they're killed. That's crazy. As soon as she tried to speak, she ran out of breath. Sojiro heard her loud and clear this time. He might have looked absent-minded, but he knew exactly how dangerous the situation was. Oh, we have never seen that expression from his face before, what the fuck? oh, he's actually about to lock in and do something. I don't know what he's about to do, but he's actually gonna lock in and do something. Aoko knew it because his carefree sounding words did not match his expressionless face. Before she could say doing, she coughed painfully. Sojiro pressed his fingers to his lips and nodded. Aoko could not quite believe it, but it looked as though Sojiro had gestured to her not to speak.
だってほら、状況はあの時と一緒だ。君がやられたら、次はこっちの番なんだろ。だから協力をしに来たんじゃないか。まあ、何もできないのも、あの時と変わってはいないんだけど。
Aoko did not know what to say. She could only look up at him, amazed and awed. The werewolf stared at him, visibly frustrated. After all, he believed himself to be the noblest of all creatures. Ignoring him was treason, punishable by death. Had Toko had not been there, he would have sunk his teeth into Sojiro's neck by now. He was sure he had been intimidating enough. However, his prey did not show any signs of fear. It was hard to imagine, but maybe, just maybe, this guy did not view him as a threat. Oh man.
まあ、誰でもいいんだけど、筋張った肉は歯ごたえがあっていいし、何より食い出がある。先にそのお兄さんから始めても構わないよね。
The boy wolf called out once again. Still not responding, Sojiro raised a hand to his nose. Cool, calm, and collected. Paying no mind to the boy, yet keeping an eye on him.
匂うな。
ん？
Everyone present was confused. No one seemed to be able to smell anything but him.
へえ。何が匂うっていうのかな。
Bayo's voice retained his usual arrogance, but was tinged with impatience. The boy was unable to hide his irritation at being ignored. Finally, Sojiro turned to face the boy just a short distance from him.
品のない肉の匂いがする。これだから犬は嫌いなんだ。
His voice was filled with disgust and contempt. Sojiro was mainly speaking to himself, but the werewolf boy had never felt so insulted. Even if that was not Sojiro's intent at all. Wait, does he even realize that that's Bayo? That's the golden wolf right there? Like, Sojiro's probably not smart enough to realize that, right? Will he realize that he can transform between a human and a wolf? In a moment, the wind picked up, perhaps signaling a change in the werewolf's mood. A fiery gale whipped around, carving patterns in the snow.
Sojiro!
Sensing he was about to be killed, Aoko desperately tried to move, but her broken body would not respond. After hearing Sojiro's insult, Alice was unsuccessfully struggling to get to her feet too. In complete contrast, Sojiro stood there, firmly and unfazed. The little boy's well of patience had run dry.
そうか。要するに、僕が子供だからって舐めてるんだね。お兄さんは。
No. His time playing human was over. Oh. Enraged, the boy transformed. He grew larger and larger, golden fur sprouting from his pale flesh. This is a new track. His mouth grew razor-sharp fangs, his hands grew claws. Drawing from the magical energy in the air, he transformed into a preternatural beast, a wolf in the shape of a human.
重化の許しは出していないぞ、ベオ。
He doesn't care. Toko yelled at him, but the werewolf did not respond. He only huffed deep breaths of hot air.
そんなバカな話が。
That was all Sojiro could say in response to the boy's metamorphosis. Such a transformation was the stuff of nightmares. What was worse, the beast now towered above him. It was enough to make anybody question reality itself.
驚いた。
Seeing his prey's reaction satisfied the werewolf, and his maw twisted into a satisfied grin. He was a strange one, this guy, but meat was meat. However, the beast's arrogance was short-lived. The prey breathed a sigh of exasperation before speaking.
それじゃあ本当に犬そのものじゃないか。
This guy's an idiot. You could hear a pin drop even in the snow. Aoko, Alice, and Toko were all dumbfounded. Were they really seeing a human not just stare a werewolf down, but insult it to its face? They simply could not believe it. It was too late. Any trace of the wolf's pride or dignity faded away. The onlookers finally realized that the wolf was serious.
ベオ、殺すな。
What? I thought Toko doesn't care about him anymore. But Toko's command fell on deaf ears. The wolf prepared to lunge, his emerald eyes fixed on Sojiro not 30 feet in front of him. A mere 30 feet. A half-second was all he needed. Another half-second to bring his claw down and slice his prey from head to toe.
死んだよ、お前。
A roar of joyous, unbridled fury echoed far and wide. It was the only warning the werewolf gave as he exploded towards Sojiro. 1 second. A golden blur swept forth in a furious gust, too fast for the eyes to follow. In the face of unworldly speed, there is only one thing to do. Sojiro stepped forward, a silent shadow opposite the beastly silhouette of the incoming werewolf. He needed exactly 3 paces. He bet his entire life on around 3 feet of distance. What's he planning to do? Oh my god, he's a furry! In the blink of an eye, death would be upon him. Yet he did not show the slightest indication he intended to avoid the lunging behemoth. The wolf's forelegs slammed into the ground with earth-shaking fury. His back muscles tensed up so much they seemed barely contained in his frame as he swept a raised paw downward. Sojiro's small step neatly evaded the claws. But he had a different motive. He was merely positioning himself for the next move. His intention was never to avoid anything. From the beginning, his mind was focused on but one thing. One point to aim for. One mind. One breath. He picked a perfect opening in the wolf's torso, the precise microsecond between contraction and relaxation. That point alone was the crack in the dam of life. Is he gonna pet him because he's a dog? Oh. He punched the werewolf in his chest with his feeble human strength. There is no way. I refuse to believe this. Oh! There was a thud, a dull thud, and a burst of blood. The twisted flesh and gore were all Sojiro's own. The werewolf's raised claws convulsed. From an insignificant impact, the beast's body was the first to collapse, then his spirit. There was a moment of utter incomprehension. The wolf opened his jaws to try and pull air into his lungs. Gasping, he began to topple forward. The slender figure slipped around to his flank. Who the fuck is this guy? The next blow pierced him like a spear. Ignoring his mangled left arm, the silhouette whirled around and drove his right elbow into the collapsing werewolf's back. There is another muffled impact. The second strike penetrated to the exact same spot the first strike had, crushing the beast's heart. No, this is not the same person. Who is this person? No. Who is he? Just knows how to fight? What? He just knows how to like aim for someone's heart? This time, the blood that flew into the air belonged to the gasping wolf. The werewolf fell to the ground, choking on his own blood. He did not get up. How? Like, how? Okay, how is he even able to react to his speed? I'm sorry, but what? It was over. There's no remorse, no hesitation in that brief act of violence. The perfect, furious golden beast lay still. Fell in a mere 3 seconds. Is Sojiro a god? No sane person would have bet on this outcome. This is not the same person. You cannot tell me this expression. He is not the same person that as we have seen for 12 fucking chapters. There is no way. His breathing was calm. His breathing calm, the victor stood over the fallen behemoth's body. We were literally talking about how this guy had like the most harmless, innocent aura. Like what? No, I'm gonna need a better explanation than this. What? No, there's no way. Even as the beast lay crumpled in the snow, he could not grasp what had happened. His heart had ruptured, cutting the blood flow to his body and brain, leaving him helpless. That much he knew. If he were a normal creature, he would be dead. As it was, this was a trifling inconvenience. Once his heart was repaired, his body would heal as well. It was not as if he had been struck by magecraft exuding his own mystical nature. This was little different than a grazed knee, which is what was so strange. Your heart does not stop from a grazed knee. The werewolf frantically searched his memory. Yeah, and like when Algo kicked his neck, like even Peach was that strong that it blocked the kick. So how the heck did the punch make it? Wait, I mean, your heart does not stop from a grazed knee. So like it shouldn't have even reached his heart that first punch. Like how'd that make him out of breath? The werewolf frantically searched his memory. He managed to remember right up until the moment he raised his claw. But what had come after that? Given the right transformation, he knew he could withstand even a cannon blast. How had a puny human dropped him? Because he's not a human, he's a god, I'm serious. Wait, before that, he had to figure out exactly what his opponent did to him. The moment he got in close, yes, he had felt a small impact. The attack was so accurate that it probably only affected his heart. Ridiculous. True. I'm on Bayo's side. This is so fucking dumb. What the fuck? Even if that was possible, there is no way that alone could stop a werewolf's heart. In the end, no matter how much he thought about it, nothing added up. I fucking knew it, man. I knew this entire time Sojiro was a god. Like, he was secretly OP and he just never showed it. I knew it. The answer was out of reach for a werewolf with no knowledge of being backed into a corner, let alone the limits of human skill. Only one thing was certain. He had lost. He tried to piece together the sequence of events. The explosion in his chest, the flash of white. After that, as he was falling over, he took another blow to his back. That was the one that disrupted his heart. Could lose? Indeed. It was physically impossible. The boy gnashed his teeth and tensed his body in indignation at this unfair conclusion.
そうだ。こんなのは嘘だ。同族でだって僕を任せる奴はいなかった。こんな痛みもこんな事態も全部嘘だ。不合理に狂っている。
But this is what he wanted, though, wasn't he? He wanted a challenge. That's what he was promised in the cave, and he got it.
だってこの僕が他の生き物に負けるはずが。
Enough thinking. He was ready. From the ground, he glared at his enemy to his side.
負けるはずが。
The very next moment, an unknown type of pain coursed down his spine. It had eyes, cold eyes, staring, piercing. This is actually a completely different person. What? Colorless. The moon looked more alive. Its arms were broken. Its inhumanly powerful attack had mangled them beyond recognition. If it was in pain, it would have cried out. But it was silent. Was it ever alive? Those dead eyes. He'd seen eyes like those before. Where did he see them before? What? Those eyes without hatred, without joy. Without any feeling behind them at all. It was a mindless insect. The werewolf's hair stood on end. What was this creeping chill crawling up his spine? Having never experienced fear, the werewolf did not know what had become of him. Despite countless clashes against other mystics, it had been a human that broke him. He knew beasts even larger than himself. He knew legendary creatures like himself. So basically, Sojiro is the alpha now. Sojiro is Bayo's master, and he's gonna make Bayo eat Toko, and they all live happily ever after. Yeah. Agreed. He did not know this. He'd never met, much less imagined, a human-sized bug. The chill down the werewolf's spine was so vicious it threatened to split him in two. I guess it makes sense that he's this terrified, because they did mention he still has the mentality of a child, so like, if this child just had this complete, like, for thousands of years, never faced defeat, and then finally faced it by a human, yeah, they'd probably be terrified if they were a child. If he moved even an inch, it would crush his skull underfoot. In spite of the despair gripping him, the boy paradoxically sensed that his opponent would not move at all. Like, it's actually just not even the same face. What the fuck? This human would exhibit no further violence. It was a creature, no, a stone, that held no animal instincts, and masqueraded as a human. The contradiction grated against his heart, his values. A phantom pain born of an unknown emotion, fear. It wasn't just grating, it was like many needles slowly digging into his heart. This had been his first taste of doubt, of reality. Such contradictions existed in the world after all. They were irrationalities and questions you did not want to hear the answers to. The suppressed pain suddenly flowed through his body like a raging river. This was also a first. Until now, he had always been able to control pain. He had never known what it was like to tremble. An elemental might have even felt sorry for him, if it were here to watch. How sad. Born, yet complete. Born complete, yet lost in the lunacy of the human world. His heart had fully regenerated. Howling in mental agony, the beast clutched his own trembling body. Those eyes. Those human eyes looking straight through him. And then, the boy realized the only reason he was still alive. Even with both arms broken, the human could have finished him off with its legs. But it mattered not, because his opponent was giving him a taste of his own medicine. This was not revenge for trying to kill him. This was revenge for the wounds he inflicted on the girls. The absurdity of it all made his throat tighten. His breathing was frantic. This human had no sense of self. He had no concern for its own safety when it stood between him and the girls. That must be why it had no hate or fear, or perhaps even intent to kill him. Indeed, the fact that he was still alive had nothing to do with the human's will. The fight was machine-like, so was its judgment. An eye for an eye, and nothing more. If the werewolf had killed one of the girls, this exchange would have ended differently. He shuddered at the thought. He had never entertained such a possibility. He had never had to, because he was supposed to be the one exception to that rule. Agony kicked him hard in the gut. No matter the mystic, nothing was immune from injury, from decay. The boy finally understood an obvious law of the world. Or rather, he had been taught. Those eyes, they would not stop staring down at him. Retribution was a universal law. He was now painfully aware of that fact. And yet, the one who brought form to this idea was this human. The pain of defeat, the pain in his heart, the pain of comprehending the incomprehensible. Pain, pain, pain! The impossibility of it all had shattered his perfect world. It ate at him, consumed every fiber of his being. The doubt made his head spin. It was too much. Humans were impossible to understand. He had not been made to face death. He had not been made to face the death of another, but his own. Unable to cope, he reverted to his human form. Quietly. He shivered like a frightened child in a mother's lap. Still lying in the snow, Aoko choked on her words, unable to entirely comprehend what had unfolded.
宗十郎、あんた。
She could not hide the trembling in her voice.
何？
Oh, and he's back to normal. What? Speaking in his usual way, Sojiro nonchalantly turned toward her.
何言って、今自分が何をしたか分かってんの？
She shouted angrily, as though he had done something wrong. Sojiro looked surprised, wondering what on earth he had done to upset her. He lowered his gaze back to the wolf boy. Knitting his brow in dismay, Sojiro finally realized what Aoko was referring to.
心外だな。青崎は分かってると思ってた。
What? What? He looked at her in disappointment.
分かってるって何をよ。
Feeling slightly affronted, Aoko responded curtly. Sojiro sighed. Am I finally getting the real I've
山
been
じゃ
asking for?
熊はそう珍しいものじゃない。以前確かに言ったじゃないか。
Yeah? And Aoko's jaw dropped. It took her a moment to process what he had just said. She recalled some meaningless conversation of or other from who knows when.
君、もしかして俺をバカにしているのか？まったく。なんで熊を倒すためなんかに修行しなくちゃいけないんだ。
Still, even if he could, like, if he knew, like, the weak point, how did he puncture, like, they already mentioned that Bayo's fur was, like, very strong already. They mentioned how fast he was, even if he knew. But you're telling me Bayo is is only as fast as a bear? Is that what you're telling me? Like, what? Like, nah, there's no way. Yes, now she thought about it. If that is the actual reason, I'm actually gonna be pissed. No, there's actually no way. That's the only reason. So Bayo is only as strong as a bear. That's great. He'd mentioned being familiar with large beast, and she couldn't deny that she'd heard him utter some anachronistic nonsense about training against them. Which meant he was used to dealing with animals larger than himself. That doesn't matter though. Like, what do you mean? If he lived the sort of life that involved run-ins with wild bears, then a man-wolf might only have been surprising, but not particularly frightening. Like, that punch shouldn't even have affected him. If Aoko's kick with magic crest did nothing, then how does that punch do anything, even if it was at his heart? The fur should have just blocked everything. Like, yeah, he's strong, but he's not, like, supernatural strong. Like, what? After all this time, who was it that really made no sense?
参ったわ。あなたの勝ちよ、宗十郎。
It was hard to tell whether she spoke in admiration or exasperation. Either way, as she slouched in the snow, Aoko spoke quietly enough only she could hear her words. Toko, on the other hand, understood exactly what had transpired. Bayo lay fallen, now just a sobbing boy, and another boy stood over him with two shattered arms. Near fatally wounded, Aoko and Alice still could not stand, but had recovered enough to breathe. As for Toko, she had only a few tricks up her sleeves, maybe three or four more runes at best. The magic crests on her back were unusable. She could use the remaining magical energy from the field imprisoning her grandfather, but that would be stupid. If she released her grandfather, she would lose ownership of the sacred ground. Failing to defeat Aoko and Alice now would mean starting over from square one, and she could not afford that. The sibling rivalry had to end. Toko had gambled everything on her surprise attack. Using the fact she was still in Aozaki to infiltrate Misaki's defenses. For 3 years, she had labored, selling her work to the association. And she used that 20 years worth of hair to mobilize an army of familiars. It was now or never.
だが、私は失敗した。
She had overestimated the werewolf's power. It should have been enough. Yeah, it should have been enough. Like, what the fuck is this? Against mages alone, Beowulf by himself would have been enough to ensure complete victory. But things did not always go according to plan. Beo's incredible strength was conditional. She knew he was not infallible, so why hadn't she prepared a contingency plan? Her heart as cold as ice, Toko stared at Sojiro, who stood tall. His arms were a hideous mess. The arm he used to strike Beo head-on barely even resembled an arm. His bones were bent out of shape, his muscles were torn to shreds. To say his arm was simply broken would be a gross understatement. Streams of crimson ran down his other arm onto the white snow. The elbow he drove into Beo's back was likely shattered, and his muscles and tendons torn up to his shoulder. Judging from the state of his arms, it was doubtful he would be able to use them again. Uh-oh. Worse than his arms were his left leg, and no doubt his internal organs too. He had used the leg to take the full brunt of Beo's charge. At a glance, it looked fine, but it was now just a useless hunk of meat attached to his torso. His insides were worse. Supporting the weight of Beo had ruptured his spine, causing widespread internal bleeding. Basically, he was a dead man standing. A bird with clipped wings. Living like that would not be living at all. He could barely stand, let alone fight again. In contrast, the collapsed werewolf was unscathed. Only once had he coughed up blood. The majority of the pool of red on the snow was Sojiro's. A crimson tapestry telling the story of the boy who stood strong and defeated a werewolf.
当然だ。衝撃には反動が伴う。拳を振るうのなら相応の負担がある。まして相手は人狼。
Nah, he's gonna tame the werewolf.
走ってくる鉄の壁を真っ向から殴るようなものだ。それを。
Perhaps he had known what would happen. Animals instinctively limit their strength in order to protect their body. Compensating for physical weakness with intellect and technique was humans' forte, and that clash had shown humans at their very best, and yet it had also been beyond human. He had attacked without concern for his own safety. Without self-preservation in mind, he could go beyond human capacity. Enough to strike through the steel-like fur of a legendary werewolf. So, their justification for him punching through the fur is because he had no self-preservation in mind and he could go beyond human capacity. What? He just got god powers with it because he just didn't have self-preservation in mind. But who would have thought that a beast able to withstand a shot from a tank would be felled by a mere human?
いや、違う。ためらうことなく殴りつけたから壊れたのではない。初めからあれは壊すことを前提にしていたな。
He sacrificed his entire body to destroy Bao's heart. Toko felt a chill come over her as she went over in her head what had transpired. It should have been a nightmarish scene, but she was captivated by that supreme display of physical irrationality. From the outside looking in, she had witnessed not an accident, but a rational consequence. In that instant, the boy had put his entire being into piercing Bao's chest. As soon as he laid eyes on Aoko and Alice, he had committing himself fully to the task. He sized Bao up, synchronized his breathing, found his weak point, and calculated the exact position, timing, and distance he would need to hold his ground. Like, yeah, we knew he was locked in, but I just can't, like... I can't, no, man, there's just, I don't know if I can agree with this justification. His punch was so precise. It wasn't the strength, like, it was obviously not the strength. It was just so precise where his heart was that he punched, that it actually affected him. He knew what he had to do to win, and did it with everything he had. It had nothing to do with instinct. A wild creature would not have tried to beat something it could not. It was all about his technique, but... But the fur covers his whole body. It doesn't matter how precise it was. It was still going to land on the fur somewhere. Only a human would risk his life when faced with the impossible. That contradiction fed his attack. He twisted his body from his heel to his neck to focus his energy. If Bao had simply tried to run Sojiro down, the werewolf would probably have won. But the beast wanted to rip him to shreds. Or rather, he was baited into doing so. After Bao charged, when he planted his feet, he raised his claw, then swung it downward, putting himself off balance. His pulse was erratic, his movement wild. In that moment, he was vulnerable. But how could he react to that if Bao is the fucking speed of light, man? Like, obviously a bear isn't the speed of light. Like, it's probably gonna be like, oh, I don't know, 15-20 miles an hour running. They made such a point to emphasize how fast Bao was, but he still was able to react to that. You can't tell me that's not supernatural. I mean, they do say he goes beyond human capacity, but his reasoning for going beyond human capacity is just so ridiculous. The beast had overwhelming power, but it was sloppy. Whereas the human concentrated all his meager power into a single point. That was how the human shifted the balance in his favor. The follow-up elbow attack would rupture Bao's heart. It was a graceless second strike. A sloppy blow no different from Bao's. The elbow was only able to penetrate the beast's golden fur because of the first attack to the chest.
あの時点でベオは丸裸にされていた。
Like they're explaining it, but I'm still struggling with the believability of it, man.
無敵の人狼がその機能の一切を休止させられた。
Took away his defense.
つまり
The strike was not meant to break, but to disable. All living creatures had weaknesses. No matter how strong the creature, it had weak points and weak moments. Not just physically, but mentally too. A time when they aren't in their best shape. Unable to focus or find motivation. Sickness, or a lack of sleep or food, for example, can cause the body's rhythm to go out of sync. For a variety of reasons, intelligent beings risk losing their ability to function properly. You have ads now, I see. Yep. And I don't know how to turn them off, so GG. Legendary beasts were no exception.
弱点、欠点をつく魔術なら知っているが。
He hates the. How am I supposed to? Okay, I literally tried to check how to turn them off because I've already said this before, but like I don't like stream for money. Like obviously I don't. I make a fucking cent or something. Like I made my ad settings the like least amount of ads it could be. Like I don't think there's an option to turn it off. The boy's strike to the heart was not an attempt to kill Bayo. Oh. It was designed to create a weakness in something that had none. The elbow attack took advantage of that break in Bayo's invulnerability.
加えて笑えることに不意打ちですらない。ベオの神経の伝達速度なら毒が当たった瞬間に感知し対応できる。
Yeah, I'm assuming Bayo just didn't even care. He thought it wouldn't even cause any because his ego was so big, like he thought he was the strongest thing ever, so like even if he saw the punch coming, he was just going to take it anyways because he's just that strong anyways.
だがそもそもそれを毒と認識できなければ。
Oh, or not. Okay, he was just too tunneled on killing him. Okay.
毒ではないものが毒になるなんて落とし穴を誰が教えてやれるものか。
I mean, it's kind of like, yeah. The punch wasn't even a threat, so basically, yeah. She was frustrated to say the least. The boy was totally committed, utterly selfless. He bet his life on that single moment without expecting a single thing in return. That boy had acquired the experience and skill to do such a thing. It was not a miracle of luck, nor a miracle of passion. It was not talent, tenacity, or hatred. Okay, it was definitely some talent, like, without constant, intense training, no one could destroy their own body on a whim like that.
子供には相手が悪かったようね。
Seeing Bayo cowering in the snow, Toko was disappointed in her own lack of foresight. She had used him for his talent alone, ignoring his inexperience. If Bayo was not a child, his life experience might have given him the strength to bounce back and devour Sojiro after regenerating. Hey, that's what I said.
ベオを責めるべきか、それとも君を評価すべきなのか。
Toko quietly lifted her left hand. Nobody noticed. Standing far away, the boy standing there looked like a hunter from a picture book. He had a slender build, but that was likely because he intentionally shed any excess. Given what she had just witnessed, his cluelessness had to be part of an act, the act of a hunter. As she thought to herself, she suddenly remembered this guy was a dumbass. The first thing that crossed her mind was the first time they spoke.
そうだったな。だが、それは忘れていたかったよ、宗十郎君。
No sooner had she felt a slither of sentiment, she returned to her unshakable resolve. She was raised as the heir to the Aozaki household, taught never to question the morality of her actions. That was why, even now. So, as an Aozaki, she was never been taught to question the morality of her actions, but then we see Alice and Aoko like be disgusted by the fact that she has blossoming magic crest. So obviously was I don't know. She knew exactly what she had to do.
でもよかった。
Sojiro muttered, unmoving perhaps because of the pain in his broken arms. Well, I don't think he can move at all. I mean, they said he's basically a dead man standing. He did not look at Aoko. Instead, his gaze was focused on Alice, who was lying prone some way away. Aoko thought he looked lonely.
よかったって何がよ。
She asked, spurring him on. They were mere steps from each other, close enough to touch hands. Their quiet voices carried in the stillness.
私たちが無事だったからなんて言ったら怒るわよ。
She was not joking. Sojiro turned away from her, slightly shaking his head.
口にするのは3度目だけど、青崎の心配はしていないんだ。いや、さっきはちょっと意識が飛んだようなんだけど。
He said, as an embarrassed smile crossed his face. The first time, he outright fainted, but the second time, his passion pushed the dizziness and nausea aside. He just calmly did what he could as best he could. Nevertheless, no matter how calm he tried to be, deep within festered a very real rage.
じゃあ何が良かったのよ、宗十郎。
Aoko's voice had a slight tinge of annoyance. Sojiro responded.
だって、ようやく約束が守れた。そっちだけが約束を守ってるのに、
What was the promise
こっち
again?
は果たせなかっただろう。それがずっと気になっていたんだ。その機会があって、本当に良かった。
His relief expressed itself as a small but heartfelt smile. Aoko listened, astonished. For a moment, she could not recall what promise Sojiro was talking about. All good, I can't remember either. When she remembered what he was talking about, what she had told him all that time ago in the amusement park, her mind went blank.
あいつをやっつけるのに協力したら、俺のことは見逃してくれる？
He proposed the deal, but in the end, he hadn't been of any use. It must have been eating away at him to Oh yeah, he was so fucking annoyed after they got out the fun house, the what is it called? Fun house, haunted house, not anyways, that house. He was really annoyed that he couldn't be of use in helping against the puppet. House of Mirrors, that's what it's called. Aoko had considered the agreement binding, but only for herself.
あんなどうでもいいことを。
She muttered in disbelief. Sojiro gave a nod and affirmed with a tiny voice.
約束は自分のために果たすものだって教えてくれたのは青崎だ。だから君が守っている限り俺も守らないといけない。はあ、 と俺はそうしたかったんだ。
As if listening to a confessional, Aoko stayed silent. She could not find the words to say, anyway. Is this him finally proving he has a sense of self? Sojiro proved ever the enigma. Taking such a trivial promise so seriously, and speaking so sincerely about something so basic. She could not wrap her head around how he had beaten a werewolf, but his personality, that was the true mystery. It was no use trying to figure that out now. To Aoko Aozaki, he was a riddle wrapped in an enigma wrapped in a conundrum.
それじゃあ借りは返したから帳尻はゼロだ。これで貸し借りはなしだぞ、青崎。
Sojiro said lightly, perhaps attempting to break the silence. Normally this would have passed her by, but she saw his kindness for what it was.
貸しがついたのはこっちの方よ。これじゃあどうやって返していいかわからないじゃない。
Sojiro nodded in happy agreement.
それより青崎の足なんか塞がってるな。
It healed.
もしかしてもう立てるのか？
She shot him a stubborn look as if to say, well duh, obviously. Ever amazed by her grit, he offered her his right hand. Despite being broken at the elbow, to Aoko, it looked as sturdy as ever. By all appearances, it was beyond recovery and would be for the rest of his life. Damn, he's just gonna be a cripple now. Even so, he seemed able to ignore the pain for Aoko's sake.
ほんと、あんたってバカ。
She uttered under her breath, looking up at him. As much as she hated to admit it, she could not refuse his hand. Resigning herself, she reached out to Sojiro. But her hand never reached his. Uh-oh. A small bell chimed. A line of wind whipped through the air. It cut through his waist like a guillotine.
Sojiro?
やはり君からこうしておくべきだったな。
What the fuck, man? What the fuck? What the actual fuck? What the fuck? We're finishing the rest of this tonight. I don't care. Oh, but I don't know if I can narrate the rest. What the fuck just happened?
案外無様ね。
Facing her sister in the distance, Aoko spoke hoarsely.
でも正しい選択だわ。これで勝負はやり直しだもの。
Would be good to sleep on it here and finish tomorrow. Okay. I mean, shouldn't I finish this scene at least? I was holding out hope that there'd be some bullshit reason he's still alive, but then I fucking read that line. She turned away from Sojiro and stared at Aoko. They stood far apart. Farther apart than their positions made them. Though there is nothing left to say, the two of them exchanged words in respect of the fact they were once sisters.
ああ、魔術刻印という私の切り札はこの通りで、人狼というカードもお前の切り札の前に敗れ去った。だが、そちらも刻印を使い切り、彼も今息絶えた。互いに決定打はなくなったわけだ。
そうね。私も甘かった。人狼が再起不能になった時点で、あなたが敗北を認めたなんて勝手に思い上がるんだから。本来ならそうなるんだけど、あなたがそんなに諦めがいいのなら、この町に戻ってきはしないものね。本当に甘かった。
It was clear to Toko that Aoko was trying to suppress her emotions. Aoko was right, though. Her sister had counted on Beowulf to succeed. As mages, no matter what cards Aoko or Alice had in their hands, they were helpless against the werewolf. But then, Sojiro had shown up, and Toko couldn't win as long as he was around. Unfortunately, though he had stopped the werewolf, he had been defenseless against the mage. So she had to kill him. With Sojiro out of the way, no one could hold Bayo back. It would take time for him to recover, but as long as his wounds were only mental, that could be overcome. Alice and Naoko could try to attack again before he recovered, but Alice was being kept in check by the poison, so Toko still had the advantage. Stalemate still. The battle would drag on. Unless Aoko were to use it. She finally gonna use the true magic? Powdery snow began to whirl around. The air around her wailed. It was magecraft that transcended all that was mystical. The gate to miracles beyond human comprehension, ready to show itself.
やる気のようね、青子。
Toko released the crest, maintaining the fields. With that, her grandfather would be freed, and the barriers around Misaki would be restored. Which is not what Toko wanted, but it was that or forfeit her life. The crests at her disposal were now twice as powerful as her sister's. Aoko gazed at this new threat with her eyes half closed. None of this was her concern. Far removed from the situation, she was searching for something hidden deeper inside herself, desperate to reach it. There it was, an odd feeling, like picking up algae. It was not the fire of emotion, it was not solid nor great. It must have been people meant by rising to the occasion. Abandoning thought itself, Aoko held on to that feeling as she stared at her enemy.
いいわよ、トウコ。
She spoke softly, yet more loudly than a scream.
お望み通り、本当の魔法を見せてあげる。
Focusing her power into the dim crest on her right arm, she weaved the words together. A single incantation. A final heartfelt farewell. A brilliant, blue-colored magic, taking time back to when a certain someone had been blessed. Should I stop here? Or should I keep going? Up to you. Oh no. Do I? It's like, it's like a question of, do I want to finish this in the state of mind I am in right now, or do I want to finish it refreshed tomorrow? Which one would hit harder? I don't know. Two to 3 hours left. Yeah, let's call it tonight. I think that's probably best. Holy fuck. Start early. Alright. That's crazy, bro. That's fucking... I'm still a bit annoyed about, like, him being Sojiro beating Bayo, but holy fuck. It's just so sudden, like. You'll know what the mountains are when you read Fate? Okay. Alright. Yeah, I don't think I even have any words. I'm just shocked.